Hey, Adam here, and welcome back. In the previous video, we talked about the disappearance of Lyuda Kuzina in Siberia, and today I'm going to present two more from the same area. Unlike Lyuda though, the two young people we're going to be reporting on today both disappeared with a dog. I've seen some commenters talk about how these disappearances are difficult to explain, so let's have a look. Let's start with Tserin Dopchut in late September of 2016. Alone, this 3-year-old boy managed to survive in a Siberian forest with temperatures nudging freezing for 72 hours. This is a forest that the Russian press describes as being full of wolves, bears, and many dangerous rivers. Let's set the scene for this. A huge search has been launched for the boy who disappeared after playing with dogs near his family home in the forests of Pikemsky district. He may have followed a young puppy into the woodland despite the watchful eye of his great-grandmother who was looking after him when he vanished. The search consisted of more than 100 people, as well as helicopters that were flying over a 120 square kilometre area, but as we now know, it took them 72 hours to find him. Okay, so in the temperatures hovering around freezing, I think we can all agree that the obvious implication here is hypothermia. And never mind to a fully grown man, this was a 3-year-old that withstood this. Well, here are just some basic facts surrounding hypothermia and a brief explanation from Dr. Robert Glatter from the Lenox Hospital in New York. Hypothermia is a medical emergency when your body loses heat faster than it can produce it. As your body temperature drops, your heart, brain, and internal organs cannot function. Without aggressive resuscitation and rapid rewarming, you will ultimately not survive. Okay, so we're all on the same page. This should be fairly obvious, but really young people are at a much higher risk of hypothermia because they're unable to protect themselves well enough, and secondly because they experience a faster rate of heat loss than adults. In addition to that, young people have large dermal surface areas relative to their body weights. According to boystownpediatrics.org, when playing outside, a young person's body can lose heat quickly. Normal core temperatures for a young person range from 98 to 99 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37 degrees Celsius. Hypothermia occurs when it drops below 95 degrees, 35 degrees Celsius. Now when temperatures are hovering around freezing, this is considered safe for young people to be playing outside. However, there are caveats. According to Boystown Pediatrics, the most important of which are layered clothing, taking frequent breaks and staying hydrated. Obviously this applies to everyone, but it's especially important for young people because of the increased risk. Now Tserin was not wearing layered clothes and was described as wearing light clothing. There is a chance that he could find a small hole or crevice and shelter in place. However, Tserin made it 3 kilometres away, or 2 miles, so he'd done a decent bit of walking over that time. And the way the articles read, it looks as though it was suspected that he was constantly on the move. Maybe I'm just completely misunderestimating the abilities of really young people here. That could certainly be true. But I could perhaps imagine this outcome with someone that's a bit older, you know? I might just be out of my depth here. I'm going to have to do some reading on the literature in regards to hypothermia and young people, because on the surface it just seems so unlikely. There are young people in my family and I try to visualise this situation and it just doesn't look good. Don't engage in those thoughts for too long because that's a good way of putting yourself in a bad mood. Anyway, let's carry on with the circumstances. They discovered him earlier this morning after a search in the taiga, some 3 kilometres from the village of Kut. Once his uncle hugged him, he said that he had some chocolate which he ate during the first day. At some point, he found a dry place under a large tree and slept there between the roots. Doctors say he suffered no serious injuries from his ordeal. His father serves in the army, and most of his family were gathering the last hay in the fields when he vanished. As said, it's not clear when exactly he found this spot to sleep. Searchers weren't sure if it was just the final night. I can see the sense behind these questions because it seems they felt he'd been walking around for a significant portion of his journey, but you also needed that shelter to survive here. I mean, it could also just be that at night he was able to find a different spot each time. Who knows? Maybe Tserin is just an absolute prodigy in the wilderness and he'll become a search and rescuer himself one day. That would be fairly poetic. On the 3rd day, the rescuers began to search through the area south of the village. Tserin's relatives discovered the boy in the field about 3 kilometers away from his village. The child has signs of exhaustion and hypothermia and was flown to a nearby town to receive professional medical care. While they weren't sure exactly how he'd managed to stay warm for the entire time, there was one obvious hypothesis after Tserin spoke to his mother. The toddler, who was lost in forests swarming with bears and wolves for 3 days, told his mother how he cried for her each night after the dogs he was using to keep warm deserted him. His mother, a law student, revealed that he had run into the Siberian tiger with a dog and 2 puppies, and they initially helped protect him and keep him warm. But one by one, his canine guardians went back home, leaving the child all alone in light daytime clothing with no food other than a tiny supply of chocolate, and temperatures sinking to freezing or below at night. His mother said he spent 3 days in the forest with only the trees around. God knows what he saw in the night. During the first day, he was with 3 dogs. On the second day, only 1 puppy was with him, and on the third day, he was all alone. He also told me he was very cold. He doesn't tell me much about what happened. I asked him, "Why did you go so far away? You know the forest is prohibited." He doesn't reply to me. I found that interesting, because you've got to be very careful with the way you approach young people. Anyone really, but especially when very young. Obviously the parents will have been dying to know everything that happened, because it is a weird situation. But what you don't want to do is to provoke the trauma. Re-experiencing the event over and over can lead to some pretty bad outcomes. It's one of those where we're all dead interested to hear every detail, but for him, it's probably just best if he forgets and it's not treated like it's a big deal. All in all, you kinda just need to let him talk about it if he wants to and just remain available. This was a very dangerous situation though, and the Tuva Emergencies Chief, A.S. Serigla, told the press that the forest had many bears and that they're all fattening for the winter. He said that they attack anything that moves, and he then made the point that it was a miracle that Tserin survived because he was wearing a shirt and some shoes without a coat. I don't know what that means in terms of trousers, but that's what was said. Some outlets report it as though he'd lost his trousers inside the forest. I'm not really sure why he'd removed them though, or if that even happened in the first place. Because of how strange this whole ordeal was, the rescue workers jokingly referred to him as Mowgli from the Jungle Book, and said that he has uncanny survival skills, which good God, he actually does. The way that he was actually found was that when this final puppy left him, searchers spotted it and were able to ascertain the direction which it came from, and this thankfully led them straight to Tserin. That's pretty much all of the information in regards to this disappearance, though through reading and learning about Tserin, I came across a number of other peculiar cases. One such disappearance was that of Karina Chikitova, who disappeared around 2 years before Tserin and also in Siberia. However, we're not talking about 72 hours this time, we're talking about 11 days and 11 nights. Similar to Tserin actually, Karina actually disappeared with her puppy too. However, despite this happening, she was only wearing a red undershirt and purple stockings. Experts of the wilderness and doctors alike were astounded at her survival, saying that the chances over such a period of time were minimal. The Siberian forest is so big that one could easily get lost with just a few steps. A 4-year-old girl has survived 11 days and nights on her own in the Siberian taiga, which is full of wild bears and wolves. Karina was saved by her puppy, who was keeping her warm for more than a week before leaving her to return home safely. Karina was very scared, but she wasn't alone. Her dog deterred the wolves and bears. He also kept her warm in the cold temperature. To survive, they both fed on water and fresh berries. Rescuers searching for her confronted a bear, highlighting the extraordinary danger she faced. The dog we're referring to was very small, and I find it hard to believe it was able to deter wolves and bears. Although saying that, I'm not an expert here, and because these wild animals don't encounter dogs very much, I suppose that could have happened because they were just unsure of it. Actually, I've just gone away for a minute, and sure enough, it looks like that may very well have happened. Bears are naturally afraid of dogs, and being chased by them often changes the bear's behaviour. They are far more likely to avoid an area after a dog has charged after them, even if it happened in a spot they had visited many times. In extreme cases, if a bear has become quite accustomed to visiting a specific area, wildlife managers will trap the bear and let the dog bark at it for some time before releasing it. When the bear is released, the dog will chase it. As cruel as that sounds, they do that to prevent bear attacks in areas that are heavily frequented by people. It's interesting and quite funny to think about that these massive bears are afraid of a small dog. There's no such understanding of this being the case with wolves and dogs though, as far as I can tell. Karina suffered from mosquito bites and scratches to her feet. The small girl was lying on the long grass which are common in the summer in the southwest of the Sakha Republic, Russia's largest region. Due to the tall grasses, it was made impossible for search helicopters and drones to spot her. Karina's mother believed her daughter had accompanied her father, Rodion, when he left on a trip on July 27 to a distant native village. The father did not realise his daughter had followed him with her puppy, and she became lost in the taiga. Karina's family and the rescue teams were distraught when the dog returned to the girl's village of Olom some 9 days after Karina had been missing. 2 days before we found Karina, her puppy came back home, said the spokesman from the rescue service. The reason they were so gutted about this was because temperatures were hovering above and under freezing for the time that she spent missing. However, dogs truly are man's best friend. So when her dog came back, we thought that's it. Even if she was alive, and chances were slim, now she would have lost all hope. Our hearts truly and deeply sank. However, the dog guided the rescuers to the stranded girl. When they found her, Karina was missing her shoes and told her mother that she'd been eating berries for the entire time that she spent missing. Other than that, she wouldn't tell her mother what she'd been doing or what had happened. Here are some interesting quotes. She weighed hardly 10 kilograms, but amazingly, she was fully conscious. Katerina Andreeva, a psychologist with the rescue team, said, "We can say that the girl's mind was not hurt. She is talking and is reacting normally to everything around her. Amazingly, she suffered no major physical injuries, though she had some scratches on her feet." There are some things that don't really sit well with me, and I can't for the life of me figure out how this even happens. 4 days after Karina had gone, her mother finally got a hold of her husband and realised her daughter was lost and a massive search was launched. It's difficult to understand how it takes 4 days to realise a young person like this is missing. I try not to be too critical of people in my videos, but come on, that is exceeding the edge. Mistakes can happen, but 4 days? Come on. I'm not a parent or anything like that. I used to work at a school for particularly vulnerable young people, special needs, behavioural problems and things like that. I used to be on edge the second anyone would leave the classroom. Never mind 4 days. How does that even happen? I don't know. I mean, I guess if the parents each believed that she was with the other, I don't know. It literally happens, I guess. At least we had the absolute best possible ending here. Anyway, here's just some further information that I found interesting. Even when Karina was found, she didn't have much fear in her eyes. Now, she is just like she was before. She runs around with other kids, speaks a lot, and doesn't give away that she ever went through such a stressful experience. But she demands people do not ask her about those days and gets very nervous if people insist. Karina was reluctant to speak this week when asked about her epic survival in Russia's largest region, which is almost the size of India. "I don't want to be photographed. I don't like it. Why does everybody ask me what I've been doing in the taiga?" I can understand that. She was probably sick and tired of being asked about it. Some outlets stated that she doesn't remember much about it, but I'm not sure. It's hard to say. Anyway, I'm just glad that in the end she was found safely and in far better condition than anyone was really expecting. So I suppose with that, now is a good time to hand it over to you in the comments below. What do you make of these disappearances? Were the outcomes better than you'd have expected? I certainly think they were. In any case, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do subscribe, hit the like button and the notification bell. If not, then you're more than welcome to leave a dislike. I'm just looking for your honest opinion, either way. I hope that you've had a great day or evening, depending on where you are, and I'll see you in the next one. Be safe, guys. Peace.